So today we're going to be looking at the channels on the mixing desk, the main screen of the mixing desk, how it shows an overview of the entire mixing desk, but also how you can zoom in and just have a look at one channel on a mixing desk. This is the main screen, and you can see it's very busy. It's trying to show everything all at once. So at the moment I'm looking at channels 1 through 32, and you can see down the left hand side of the screen I've chosen 1 to 32 to display channels 1 to 32, and then if I go down a little bit further, then I'll get 1 to 16 plus the DCAs, which are digitally controlled amplifiers. I've got the DCAs assigned to something, but I'll talk about them in another presentation, not in this presentation. We'll just talk about the main screen in this presentation. So 1 to 16 and the DCAs, or we can choose 17 to 32 and the DCAs. It's the same 8 DCAs, just to confirm. And we can then go down one and we'll see the aux returns and the effects returns. So those can be changed as well. And we'll see the buses 1 to 16 and the matrix outputs, 1 to 6 matrix outputs, because 7 and 8 are dedicated to the main left and right outputs on this mixing desk. We can choose to see everything. It's too big to even fit on the screen. So 1 to 32, those are 32 channels on the desk, 16 inputs on the back of the desk, so 16 possible inputs. We can see that the last one, 16, is the omnidirectional microphone, which is the phantom powered omnidirectional microphone. 17 to 32 are the first 16 outputs from the computer to the USB card. So aux returns 1 to 6, they're on the back of the desk, and we haven't got anything plugged in there at the moment. Aux 7 and 8 are dedicated to the USB recorder, left and right. And then if we go a little bit further, we'll see the 8 effects returns, 4 effects but 8 returns, left and right. And then we can see the 16 buses, the 6 matrix outputs, the left and right output, the mono center output, the 8 DCAs, digitally controlled amplifiers, and then that's everything. So if you want to edit the display, then you click on the edit button, which is on the left of the screen. So it's just above the 1 to 32, you see that little edit button. And when you click on that, you'll see all the channels on the X32 as names, and you can choose which ones you want to display. If you want to change the name that's on this, so instead of being auxes and effects, you could change this anything you wanted it to be. I think it's 12 characters maximum, but you could change it to anything that you wanted it to be. And then you can choose to clear all the selections so that nothing's selected at the moment, and then you can just click on something to select it. And then you can initiate the bank to just initiate it to its original settings, and that changes the name as well. And then you can insert a blank, which is a little blank channel strip which is inserted after the last selection. So here I've inserted a blank channel strip after effects 4 right and before left and right bus. That's what a blank looks like, and they're useful if you want to separate things out from each other, so they have separate compartments for different things. Here we can see a mixer. Now the mixer is just showing 1 to 32. If you're not seeing this page in the front, then just clicking on that mixer up at the top left will display this screen so that you can see it. The main page gives a big overview of all the settings, so everything that can be routed to wherever it's going to be, or everything that can be turned on or off for a channel is indicated on the main screen. But we'll just look at one channel. So if we look at the channel 17, which is the bass guitar at the moment, channel 17 to 32, they're on the USB card, so they don't have phantom power. Channels 1 to 16, they're the physical inputs on the back of the X32 rack, so they have phantom power as an option that you can click on it to turn it on or click off it to turn it off. So at the very top it shows the gain setting. All of the channels have this gain setting at the very top, so you can click on that and slide it to the right or the left and turn it up or turn it down. It's kind of a tricky little click to try and get that. Then it shows, underneath that, it shows the effects routing. So we can see that this bass guitar has been routed to an effects insert point. It's not got phantom power on it, and it's not been phase reversed. Then we have the mix buses. There's 16 possible mix buses. We've got 1 and then a pan, so 1 is stereo, so 1 and 2, and then pan control, right up to 6 and stereo and pan control, and then 13, 14, 15, 16. Bass isn't sending to any of those buses, but if you click and hold on that, you can turn it up so it will send to them. Then underneath that, you've got the gate, the EQ, and the dynamics settings. And these update to show you what the settings are for those dynamics or gates or the EQ. Underneath that, you have the pan control, so you can pan it left or right in the left-right bus. The scribble strip, in this case it's called bass, but you can write something that's memorable for you. And the solo switch, which means that you only hear this on the control room bus. And then you have the fader, the mute switch, and the channel number. I'm not going to talk about DCA assignments or mute group assignments. I'm going to talk about them in another presentation, but I'm not going to talk about them today. I've moved it so that we only see 17 to 32 and we aren't seeing the 8 DCAs. Now, the first thing it says is that we're listening to the keyboards bus. It's buses 11 and 12, so while we're listening to the main left-right bus, we don't hear anything coming out of the keyboard, so moving the faders won't change anything. But now that we're on the keyboards bus, the vocoder has gone down. You'll see that the little blue faders are moving to the right and to the left. So that's on Ben's vocal. And they go grey whenever you mute them. Now, this is the drums bus, and you'll notice that they go up and down on the little yellow bars on the left, but now we're listening to the drums bus, and now we can hear it. And now we're listening to the main left-right, and we don't hear anything because we're listening to the drums bus. We're not listening to the main left-right, and all we're affecting by moving this is everything on the main left-right. We can see that we have to be listening to the correct bus and then editing the correct bus to affect what we're hearing in our headphones. This is the channel view. To the left of that is the mixer view, and just there at the top we can see the channel view. And so this is the channel view for the bass guitar. This is the selected channel that we have in the main screen. Whichever channel you've selected will appear up there just as the selected channel. Okay? If you click on the channel name, you'll get a choice of images. These are 4.03, but this is 4.1, which is the newest version of the software. So it's got cartoon versions of what it displays of the instruments. You get the channel input section, which is the first thing that you're going to see on this, which allows you to stereo link odd and even numbers. So 17 to 18, not 18 to 19, but 17 to 18, or 19 to 20, but not 18 to 19. Left is always odd number, right is always even number. So a stereo link button, and you'll be asked if you really want to do that after that. Underneath that would be the phantom power if channel 17 had any phantom power to turn on or off. But channel 17, as I've said, is the USB card, so it doesn't have any phantom power on it. Underneath that, the polarity is just the phase reversal of the cable. and the delay, whether the delay is in or not. And then we have an insert point, whether the insert is before the EQ and the compressor or the dynamics processor, or whether it's, if you click off that, it will put it post and then it will make it after the EQ and the compressor. The dynamics are the dynamics before. If you click on the pre, then the dynamics processor comes before the EQ, so they swap position. And you can trim the amount that you're boosting or cutting the input by if you want to. There's the noise gate, the insert point, the EQ and the dynamics. You can vary the threshold for the noise gate, you can vary the threshold for the dynamics. You can see the gain reduction that they're putting in. You can vary the frequency for the low cut, and you can switch on and off the low cut for the EQ as well. And then we have the main output section, which you can see that the bass is going to the main stereo output. It's not going to the mono center bus. It's panned in the center. It's in DCA group 6 and mute group 4, but I'm going to talk about them another day. But that's how you assign DCA groups or mute groups. That's one way of assigning them. And then finally, we've got the mix buses. We can see a more zoomed in view of the mix buses and edit those as well. They become faders when you click on them with the mouse. You can turn them up or down. You can see the panning is just below them. If we go to the config button now, then you just see the stereo link, the phantom power and the polarity. They're repeated from the previous page. Here you can see them in some detail. Also here you can select what source is going to feed this channel input. We're looking at bass channel 2, which is fed by input number 2. So that's what feeds the X32 racks input. You can set the low cut on the EQ, and you can set the delay here. If you set a delay, then the delay comes on. You've got to remember to switch that delta T on in order to hear the delay. So you can choose to insert an effects bus just on the bass channel, and I've just done a sub-octaver, which just does the octave below and the octave below for the bass. And that sounds quite, well, might sound quite good for the bass player, who knows. You can turn this on or off using the effects button and turn it on or off, there you go. And you can choose it's going to be pre or post the EQ and dynamics just by pressing the pre button. At the top of the insert position, there are a group of on-off displays. So the first of those will be phantom power, and the second of those is the delay. The third of those is the low cut, whether that's on or off. The fourth of those would be the gate. The fifth would be the EQ, and the sixth would be the dynamics processor. So you've got 6 possible switches that you can see some visual feedback of at the insert position. So if you click on the gate image in the mixer tab, which is the main overview tab, then that'll take you to the gate editor, which is a really useful thing to be able to do. It doesn't happen in the channel tab, so although you can turn the gate on and off there and adjust its threshold, you can't click on the image, but you can see its gain reduction. But you can't click on the image and just go to the editor as well. You can make the gate active in its editor as well, adjust its threshold. You can see the gain reduction just there, and adjust its gain range in the editor. So you can adjust all those elements in the editor. You can alter the gate's function from a noise gate to a expander or to a ducker, and the visual display will change slightly as you go to each of those different elements in the mode button. The usual controls of a noise gate are here, and I'm not going to go into these. I'm assuming that you all know how to use a noise gate. A noise gate is very useful, so is an expander or a ducker. Classic use of a ducker would be a DJ speaking over a record, so it ducks down the level of the record by a certain number of dB and then raises it back up when the DJ stops talking. The dynamics processor, well, if you click on a dynamics window in the mixer tab, that'll take you to the dynamics editor as well. So it's really useful, this mixer tab, to just jump straight into the dynamics editor. It doesn't happen in the channel tab, but there you can see the gain reduction and you can change the threshold and you can turn the dynamics processor on and off. Clicking on the image doesn't take you through to the dynamics editor. This is the dynamics editor, which, like the gate editor, you can make active. You can adjust the dynamics processor's threshold and gain reduction. The dynamics processor can either be a compressor or an expander. There it is as an expander. We'll go back to a compressor just when I finish this. And you can change its knee to be hard knee or soft knee. All the usual controls of a dynamics processor are there for you to work. One thing I've found just recently, X32 edit doesn't send the correct message to the X32 rack when you solo the sidechain filter. It doesn't send the correct message, so you don't hear that on the control room bus. But that, I think, is going to be fixed in the next update to the software, because they've accepted that's a problem. So they're going to fix that, or they're making it a priority to fix that. The EQ. So again, on the mixer tab, if you click on an EQ display, any one, it'll jump you straight to the EQ editor for that channel that you've selected. So in the channel tab, although you can turn the EQ on and off, and you can adjust the low cut frequency and turn the low cut on and off, you can't click on the image and just get to the EQ editor. On all channels 1 to 32, you'll get a 4-band parametric EQ with a low cut filter. So that's channel 17 we're looking at. On all 16 buses, 1 to 16, left, right, and the mono center, and the matrices, you get a 6-band parametric EQ. It doesn't have a low cut, but it's 6 bands. And on all the auxiliary and effect returns, you get a 4-band parametric EQ. You can turn the EQ on or off using the EQ on-off switch, and you can turn the low cut on and off, or adjust its frequency by double-clicking on the number, and you can reset all of the EQs to 0 dB. Everything is reset. When you press the reset button, it will then ask you if that's really what you want to do. So there is a stage after that where you can say, no, that's not what I really want to do. But if you do want to do the reset, just click on OK, and then that resets all the EQs to be flat. You can click to select a band. This is the low that we've selected at the moment. So the low band has been selected here, and we can turn it on or off by the power switch, which is just to the right of the low display. We can click on the mode to choose between low cut, low shelf, standard parametric EQ, vintage style parametric EQ, high shelf, or high cut. The standard parametric EQ and the vintage style parametric EQ are slightly different sounding and slightly different looking from each other. The values can be entered as numbers, or the sliders on the right, you can slide them and then it just changes the numbers that are displayed. So at the moment we've got 124.7 Hertz as the frequency that we're going to get from the low EQ. If we take that slider, the middle slider, and just slide it to the right, we're increasing that frequency, or we're decreasing that if we slide it to the left. So we can see the real-time analyzer, and it can be set pre the EQ or post the EQ. So after the EQ or before the EQ, and here you can see a spectrum analysis has been set to just show us what's happening. This is a spectrum analysis after the EQ, so it's after the low cut and after the slight boost at the high mids and the slight cut in the low mids and the boost in the lows and the slight high shelf on the highs. So next time I'll cover the sends, the main FX 1 to 8 tabs at the top of the screen in X32 Edit. But for now, thanks very much.